Hey, it's Matt from Audio Workshop, and today I wanted to have a look at the new QSC Touch30 digital console. And I've got to say, to start with, I was a bit skeptical about mixing or using a digital console with a touch screen. I've come from an analog background where I'm used to a tactile surface where I've got a knob or a button, something to grab onto, something to move. So mixing on a touchscreen really didn't appeal to me in concept. But to be honest, I think QSC have done a great job with this desk, and it's got some great features and at a pretty impressive price point, to be fair. So we're going to change camera angles, we're going to have a look at this console and talk about some of its features. So hold tight, I'm going to change angles. Okay, so let's have a look at the front panel. On the top of the panel we've got the 24 input gain controls, head amp controls, which is certainly nice to be able to get at quickly and is a physical knob, so I think that's a really good feature. Just over here on the right hand side we've got headphone input, but we've also got a 3.5mm stereo input as 29 and 30, which I think is actually really a good option too for your playback music. If you're running it off an iPhone or a phone or iPod or whatever you might be doing. Down further we get to the touch screen, which we'll come back to in a minute. Over to the right hand side though we've got a whole lot of buttons. So we've got our home button, our menu button, record playback button, anti-feedback button, RTA. We've got the toggle wheel on this side here, which you can see there at the moment is moving our main left and right fader up and down. It also can be a push button, so that can be used in a few different ways. We've got user assignable buttons, which are brilliant. We've got phones, which turns this into the volume control for your phones. Monitor turns this into the volume control. We do have a talkback mic button, so we'll go into some of these things in a minute. We've got auxiliary overview, effects, mute groups, info, which is basically a manual for the mixer actually in the mixer, which is pretty cool. Phantom power assignment, a wizard, which takes you into a wizard menu to choose which wizard you might like to select, which we'll look at too shortly. And then we've got some more user assignable buttons, 5 and 6 up there, and then copy and paste, which you can change the assignment to as well. So let's move over to the screen. So this is where most of the action happens. At the moment I've hit the home button, so we're on the home screen, and straight away we can see on inputs 1 and 2 we've got input signal. At the moment it's called mic 1, mic 2. You can see our faders, we can see some panning there, assignment next to the meters, and then some mute switches. So that's our view of the first inputs 1 to 8. We've also got our main fader left and right on the right hand side that stays put, which is great unless we're going to auxiliaries or subgroups or DCAs. Otherwise we have that master fader there, which is really handy. And obviously over on that left hand side we can go to auxiliaries, which we will do in a minute as well. So once we've dealt with 1 to 8, because this is a touch screen, we can now go 9 to 16, 7 to 24. We can go to the stereo inputs and also the record output if we're doing 2-track to USB. We've got effects masters, we've got our auxiliary masters, which are color coded, which is again just a really useful indicator of what we're dealing with. Auxiliaries 9 to 14, subgroups, which is cool. Some of the digital consoles don't have subgroups as such, while you can turn a bus into a subgroup. It's not dedicated as such. This one dedicates some subgroups. And then lastly up here we've got DCAs, digital controlled amplifiers, which we'll talk about a bit, and we've got our scenery call up here. See, our main fader has stayed put through all of that, so you can always have easy access to what the main mix is doing. We said down the side you've got auxiliaries, so I'll just go to auxiliary 1, and then we can now, whoops, we don't really want to do that. So right, here we go, auxiliary 1. Now we're seeing inputs 1 to 8, and basically it's assignment on faders in this view, so we can grab the fader and push it up, and now that's going to auxiliary 1, or mic 1's going to auxiliary 1. So we can go through all of those auxiliaries that way and do sends on faders. Let's just go back to our input channels, left and right, and let's actually have a look at the channel a little bit more. You can see on this one we've got input signal coming in, and we could trim that up the top on those physical gain knobs. We've got a Q button there. As soon as we hit that, that's going to send it to the headphones. Obviously the fader itself and mute. Once we select the fader, we can actually control that with our finger, but we can also come over to the rotary knob and we can move it with that as well. So you've got two places you can control the parameters, which is pretty cool. If we want to actually go into the channel itself, we hit the top of it. Now this is where we can come in and we can name the channel. So as soon as we hit that, we've got a keyboard there. So we might just go, what are we going to do? Let's go backspace. And we might put in there iPod. 2 O's. It's hard to do it when you're looking through a camera. There we go, iPod. Okay, so that's named that track now. We can actually go in and we can link that, and that's now going to link 1 and 2 together, which is what we actually want, given that that's a stereo input effectively. This is where you can also flip the channel to the digital input, do your polarity, phantom power on and off. You can go into the patch matrix, which we'll talk about down the track, so that input 1 is physically is not necessarily channel 1 on the desk. You've got some digital input delay there. If you're time syncing to video, that can be a useful thing sometimes. You've got digital gain trim once you're using that digital input, and then you can see down here we've got assignments. So main, left and right at the moment is assigned, but this is where we can look at it globally and assign subgroups, DCAs and mute groups. So perhaps we'll go and send that to DCA 1, and perhaps we'll go mute group 1 as well. Now if we wanted to do the same thing on channel 2, we can actually come up here to next. Now we've got input 2. We won't name it for now, and I've already assigned it to DCA 1 and mute 1 for the sake of this exercise. So let's go back to number 1, or our iPod input as we've called it, and obviously we're in overview mode, but we want to have a look at what else is going on. You can go to overview and see whether there's EQ on, compression, whether the gate's working, effects sends, auxiliary sends. It's also showing us up the top that we're assigned to left and right at the moment, DCA 1 and mute groups. But we've still got access to the digital gain trim and a bit of delay, so it's a pretty good overview. We can go into EQ, and this is where we actually can get into tweaking our channel. So at the moment it's in simple mode, so it's basically just giving us, say, a low mid. We can go on there and we can boost or cut that particular frequency, and the Q is set, so that's a pretty wide Q in simple mode. If we come up and take simple mode off, now we've got a true 4-band parametric EQ, high pass, low pass filters, or adjustable bells. So this is where we can go and actually tweak what we want in terms of gain, frequency and Q with up to 4 bands. So pretty useful EQ there. So moving on to the compressor, we pull up the screen, and we're starting off in simple mode. We were only seeing a threshold adjustment. Once that's turned on, you can control the knob, and that's basically just pulling down the threshold. The rest is going to be automatic. Once we actually come out of simple mode and go to advanced mode, you have what you would expect to see with the threshold ratio, attack release, output gain. This also has a de-esser, which is cool, and you can actually sidechain the compressor, so you can get a bit tweaky if you want to, which is pretty cool. Next up, gate. Simple mode, again, just adjusting threshold. If we take it out of simple mode, we're looking at attack and release times, threshold, attenuation, and the hold time. So again, you can keep it simple, or you can get in and tweak it to your heart's content. Effects ends. So effectively it's got 6 effects engines, and you can go through and tweak what the effects engines are. So this particular one is a mono delay, and you can set the delay time, the BPM, regeneration, percentage, low cut, high cut, and this is where you can also assign effects sends to your auxiliaries, or effects engines to your auxiliaries, I should say. So again, you can keep it simple, or you can start doing some pretty cool pro features. We've got to go back to home to go back to our overview where we were just before, and this is where we can obviously select the effects, and we can bring in on the track in the background a bit of mono delay, which sounds incredibly out of time and awful. Alright, we'll go to auxiliaries. So this is a snapshot of your 14 auxiliary sends, and this is where you could start sending it to any and all of the 14 buses with that channel in mind. You can mute it going to those auxiliaries, and you can obviously choose whether you are pre-fade or post-fade. So it's pretty cool. Again, you've got on the auxiliaries, you've got pre-fade, post-fade, pre-dynamics, pre-all. You can apply delay if required to that output. You can assign it to DCAs and mute groups, but being QSC, it also has some presets in there for E series, K series, and its amplifiers, so that can be pretty cool if you're wanting to load preset EQs for particular speakers and so on. So pretty cool, pretty cool. We'll go back to where we were by hitting the home button. The other cool thing that QSC have given you in this is a whole bunch of presets, so you can actually go down, and let's say we're doing drums, and we want to do drums. Then we can pull in, let's say, kick with sub. Now that's going to pull in a preset for a kick with a sub. So for guys that are not wanting to spend a lot of time fluffing about and getting their sound, there's some pretty cool presets that actually sound good in there, and they've been designed by top engineers in the States. So it's a pretty, at the very least, it's a great place to start, and for engineers that are new to mixing, it's a great tool. You can also save your own user presets, so if you found the magic bass sound, you can save that and then pull it up for your next gig. Setup, so this is where we were to begin with, where we named it, where we've linked it, and we've assigned DCA1 and mute groups. So that is pretty much the way you set up channels. We did talk about before the fact that you can use the cursor up the top. Now we're on to channel 2, 3, 4, and you can go and apply your settings as per your setup. So that is a pretty good look at how to set up a channel, how to send it to auxiliaries, how to send it to DCAs, how to send it to subgroups, how to send it to effects engines, how to tweak effects engines. Now if we want to go to the DCA window, we can now go there, and we now have master control of what's being sent to DCA1. We can go and we can name that if we wanted, so it might be our drums DCA, and we can do that. Meanwhile, we still have our master fader here, which is playing the music through the console, as you can hear. So let's come over here, we'll go to menu. Once we have hit menu, we've still got our master fade, which is good, so we can still grab that and do tweaks if we want. We've got scene menu here, where we can open that up. It has a few factory scenes, but again, this is where you can save your own scenes for your shows and export it onto a USB stick, or import your shows from a USB stick with your scenes on board. So super cool. Going back to menu, we have got security, where you can set your security settings, so whether we want to lock people out or not, and if so, what the users can and can't see. Let's go back to menu. We've got DCA groups, so there's a snapshot if we want to do a global change or global setup, and there's our inputs, and we can quickly just select the DCA we want to use. So in this case, if we select the DCA 1, it's showing that input 1 and 2 are already going to DCA 1, but we could very easily just go, right, those two are going to DCA 1 as well. We can name that there, and so on. Going back, we've also got auxiliary overview. This is an overview of the auxiliaries per channel, and seeing again 1 to 8, 9 to 16, 17 to 24, and the stereo inputs. So this is where we can go and do quick assignments to auxiliaries if we want to. You can see there that input 8 has been set to pre-fade. Alright, let's go back to menu. We've also got user buttons. So again, this is going to tell us what the buttons are, what they're called, and what they're going to do, but you can customize obviously what you want. So I've changed the user button 1. It was assigned to be a cursor to nudge things right, but I've changed that now to mute group 1, as you can see, which is pretty cool, and you can go through and do all 8 user buttons if you want. 7 and 8 default to copy and paste, but you can go in and change that if you really wanted to. Okay, going back menu, what else have we got? So FX overview. So again, this is showing us the 6 effects sends per channel in banks of 8, so we can do quick sends to the different buses if we do it that way. Alright, back to menu. So we've also got remote control settings, so that's where you can set up your iPad control, MIDI setup if you're wanting to do MIDI, language if you're wanting to change language. It's also where you can say you want advanced or simple mode for your screens globally, clearing clip, clearing mute, clearing cue, and clearing copy and paste. But this is also where you can come and set up your mixer. So this gives you your global or general settings, so whether you're looking at PFLs or AFLs, the sample rate, the dynamic processing, whether it's pre-EQ or post-EQ, demo mode on and off, emit levels on paste overview. This is where you can set up your network, brightness of the screen, your monitor source when you're going into monitor mode, whether you need to time align that with front of house, you can do that. External recording and playback mode, so again you can set up that for any DAW recording. This has a 32 by 32 interface on board, or you can do USB multi-track recording or MP3 onto a drive. So a whole lot of stuff there in terms of flexibility. Okay, what else have we got? So patch mode, this is where we can decide whether input 1 is in fact channel 1. And you can store your different patch settings. So there you can see at the moment we're looking at channels 17 to 30, which are basically just as default, so 17, 17 and so on. Go back to menu. This console also has the ability to have a talkback mic, and it does have a noise generator. You can also use the talkback mic in setting up when you're EQing your front of house system. So maybe you want that as your measurement mic. You can generate pink noise and measure your system and set up your EQ for the room. The other thing you can see is that you can select where you want to send your talkback mic. So that is very handy depending on what you're doing. And then you do also have phantom power as a global sort of overview, and you can select it accordingly. So very cool. So there's a couple of places to work on the console depending on what you're wanting to do and how quickly you're wanting to do it. What else can I tell you? Let's have a look at the wizard window. So this gives you an effects wizard, walks you through setting up effects. It has a tuning wizard, which again is tuning your PA system, and it has a gain wizard, so just making sure that your gain structure is set to optimize the PA system. So that's pretty cool. We can also have a look at global auxiliaries. I think we might have had a look at that. There's effects mute. We can come to phantom power by hitting that button rather than going through the menu. And lastly, we can trigger mute groups off the screen if we want to. So if I go back to home page, I've set the user button up here, user 1 as a mute group, and that's doing channels 1 and 2. So you can set it to user buttons as well. Alright, I'm going to change angles and we'll have a quick look at the back of the console in terms of connectivity, and then that's probably a wrap. Okay, just see you in a tick. Okay, so we're back having a look at the back panel of the console. So first up, you'll notice we've got a standby switch, a couple of USB ports, so that's for playback, and all recording direct to USB or USB DAW below. We've also got an Ethernet RJ45 connection. You can see there's our 24 inputs, so by the time we get to channels 21 to 24, we've got a combo XLR or jack inputs. We've got 14, they're calling them auxiliary outputs or bus outputs, with dedicated left and right outputs and monitor left and right outputs. We've also got Q headphones, we've got auxiliary 13, 14 and 11, 12 there as well on jack outputs for headphones. And there you can see obviously our stereo inputs, so we've got 3 of those, and obviously the one on the front on a 3.5mm TRS jack, talkback mic. So for a small framed console, we've got plenty of ins, plenty of outs, to keep most people pretty happy. Okay, so in summary, you know, I said at the start I was skeptical being a guy that's come from analog, and while on digital consoles actually really enjoy still having physical faders and knobs to play with and not being reliant on a screen. Having said that, I've given this console a pretty good workover, and I'm really impressed with the usability, the workflow, being able to do things in different ways depending on what you're trying to achieve, and there's some really cool pro features in this console. But equally, if you're wanting to keep it simple, when you flick this mixer into simple mode, it really is easy to use. Obviously, it's got the 32 inputs. It has the DAW 32x32 interface, USB recording if you want it. It really gives you a lot of options, whether you're the live sound guy or even the studio guy that's wanting really good user interface to get multiple channels into your DAW system. We haven't gone into all the features today and how they work, and if you want to know more, why don't you hit me up, send me an email, matt@audioworkshop.co.nz, and I can answer some questions. If you're in the Wellington area and you would like a demo, hit me up. I'd love to organise that with you so you can see this thing in action, and we can go from there. Hey, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again soon. Cheers. Bye.